welcome back to my channel where I'm building a RANS S21 airplane. In this episode I attach the silicone baffle seal material to the engine baffles. This is to help direct the airflow over the cooling fins and help keep the engines running at the proper operating temperature, which overheating is a little bit of a problem with these Titan engines, so you got to make sure you do everything you can to keep those temperatures down. I mentioned a couple times in the videos there are no manual instruction pages on how to do this. I did research a little from watching some different builders. There's different ways to do it, so I emphasize this is not instructional. This is just the way I figured it out and got it done. So with that, let's jump in and figure out these baffle seals. Okay, there's a couple things I could do next. I'm trying to get as much done before I have to take the plane to the hangar. I'm going to do the engine baffling. That's got to be done, and I can do that without any precursor to anything else. So I put a note out to the forum that there didn't appear to be any text, any diagrams, or any figures for the baffle seals. And they said, yeah, that's the case. You're kind of on your own. So I did look at a couple of videos, looked at Derek and Tony's videos on it. They kind of took two different approaches. And then Todd was at the open house, the RANS open house, and he attached 6 or 7 pictures to the Facebook forum showing a plane that was being built by RANS, and he took pictures of the baffle seals. I'm going to post those here so you can look at what RANS does, and that's giving me a pretty good insight, and maybe it'll be useful for you. So we'll continue with the baffle seals. I found these 2 strips and they don't have any labels on them. I think I'm pointing at them. They don't have any labels on them, and it looks like kind of what Tony and Derek were using. I hope this doesn't go to something else. And I found my baffle seal material kind of in my parts box. So I think I'm going to use these 2 strips and just hope that they don't belong somewhere else. I would think they'd be labeled if they did. So I'm going to use these to kind of sandwich the material. I'm going to start by cutting these little strips of this stiffener material that'll act as a sandwich. You got to cut a bunch of them because you got different angles and different sizes, so you just kind of move them up the side. And I'll cleco them with a 40 right now. The holes will eventually be 30. And I think I'm just going to use AVEX rivets. I can't see why you need the strength of the cherry rivet. So I don't know if I have enough, but I certainly have some from spruce that I can use. And the material, I'm just cutting. I'm measuring and cutting. And it's thin enough that you can use tin snips on it. And I'll just cleco those all the way along the baffle. These little brackets are done all the way around the upper cowl. I haven't done the forward section. They all pretty straightforward. I kind of rounded the edges a little with some filing and trimmed them. And oops, I only have 1 cleco in. They're all clecoed with 40s right now. They'll eventually be 30s. And I think, everything went smooth. There was one section here that kind of required it bend. It kind of comes in, bends down, and bends. And I just bent it a little bit and put one piece here. This piece is on the outside because I couldn't get the clecos over here. But other than that, they just all went on. You have to cut them in fairly short sections because the angles change, and if you just can't do it in one section. So you do it in like 4-inch and 5-inch sections all the way around. At least that's the way I found. I also installed these forward baffle brackets around the forward baffles around the flywheel. The first thing that I did is I cut a strip of the baffle seal so it wraps around, and it's coming up about 3 inches on either side, which is the width of the baffle going this way. Then I secured it with that brace back here, and I'm going to wrap this one first. And apparently this is on the outside of the baffle, according to the pictures from the RANS plane in the factory. I've got the first strap on around the outside, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the inside strap here first before I do the second forward strap. I just want to make sure that this is going to fit right. I've got just a little bit extra material, but I can trim that. And then there's a curve here that I'm going to template the curve and kind of cut the material so that it sits flat across the top, but it's got a little bit of curve to match the engine shape. I cut a slight arc in the bottom of the side piece, and I put the bars in here and clecoed it in. I've just trimmed a little bit here so it matches. I'm not sure what the final trim is going to look like, but now I'm going to work on this cross piece. I've got the baffle seals clecoed all the way around. I think I did an okay job. There is no manual or instructions for this section, so you just kind of go by factory pictures, a couple other YouTubes. Some have tried or have successfully put one piece all the way around. Others have done it in strips. I went with the strip method just because I couldn't figure out how to get all the rise and falls to work. Oh, if you notice, I'm missing a little section right here. Well, after I got everything done, this is the piece of baffle seal that I had left over, and there's obviously not enough. I need about 18 inches. Got about 6. I've heard that it's a tight fit. I did use a little bit on the airbox intake, but that's per the manual, so I don't think I wasted any, but for some reason I'm about a foot short. So I'm going to have to order more and get that done, and then cut and shape, I think, is the last step. Okay, aircraft spruce had the silicone by the foot. I originally saw a $50 9-foot section or 12-foot section. Only needed about 2 feet, so I think I paid $5 a foot, maybe $10 for a couple feet. So we'll get the baffle seal finished. I've got this last piece that I picked up from spruce put on. Boy, these corners are a pain to get in here. I had to shave these brackets a little bit, and getting the punches lined up and the clecos in, that was kind of tough. At this point, I've got some overlap here, and here. I'm not 100% sure how it's supposed to sit yet. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cowling on and just kind of see what pushes down where, which direction things go, and whether I trim, whether I glue, kind of like what's the next step. So I think having the cowling on will help me figure that out. Well, I couldn't even get the cowling on because of these corners. These flaps have to be further out. So I'm going to look at the pictures from the RANS install and see what I have to do with these corners, because the cowling won't even go on. Okay, I've got the cowling on. It seems to be okay. I'm starting to rivet these side rivets. It looks like I'm going to have a natural bend this way. I am going to tuck this down and then rivet this to the back corner. That'll give it a natural flow this way. And then I'll bring that down. This I'm still a little uncertain about, but I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to get the sides and the back all done. Again, this will come down. I'll rivet it in back here and then bring this down this way. And that should give me the nice fold. So I think I'm halfway there. So I have finished the riveting of all the rivets to put the baffle seal material on. A couple footnotes that I would pass on. First, I use Avex rivets for about 95% of them. In these areas where you've got double layers of material and then 2 brackets to go through, because you got one on both sides, I had to use AAPQ 44 cherry rivets. I had a bag of 44s. They seem to work. Also, this material that I got from spruce is just a little bit thicker than the RANS material. So again, I had to use 44s around the back side, or wherever this this last strip of heavier material. I had a bag of 44, so that was no problem. I always have extra rivets around. The other thing is some of the rivets face in. Sometimes I couldn't get my gun in around some of these corners, so some face in, some face out. I'm hoping that's just aesthetic. Also, this flap is on the inside. I saw a lot of on the outside, but remember, I've got this stupid bracket for this constant speed motor that I've got. So this prevented me from doing the outside. I don't think there's a difference, but I don't know that for sure. And then I saw a Vans YouTube where the guy's talking about securing some of these materials and laying them over so they're, you bend them over and then secure them to kind of hold the bend in. He said there's no real good adhesive. He's tried 3 or 4 experiments and there's no real good adhesive. So he says using a rivet or a screw and a nut to hold things down is the best formula. If I'm wrong on that, someone go ahead and comment if you found a good glue that will stick and hold the silicone. Again, these corners have to kind of go down. So I'm just going to put a screw in here or a rivet and kind of hold the corners down. He also said when you have single piece around the corners, you're going to have to make a slit here in order for them to fold down. Otherwise, you end up with this kind of crinkling thing. And he had slits in his. And this was a Vans, I guess he was an A&P, but he was pretty well versed, so I trusted him on that. So a couple places, I'm probably going to cut that. My cuts here, we're just kind of copying the Vans or the RANS pictures that I had. So at this point, I think I'm done other than securing these guys down. And I am going to put the cowling on and kind of make sure it all sits flat. But this is how I did it. And as I think I mentioned in the beginning, this is not instructional. There are no instructions. This is just the way I did it. And I think it's going to work out, but we'll find out. Okay, so everything's got another chapter. When I put the top cowling on, I couldn't get these to form over correctly. And I understand there's glues that won't stick. So I put some stainless steel screws with nuts on the other side to hold these down. Now when I lay the cowling down, if I move it a little forward and lay it down, this settles down. This settles down. The same thing here. I had to put a cut here because this wasn't going to lay down. And then I put the same screws in here. Now this lays down. I don't know. Again, I'm not giving you instructions on this. There were no instructions. But it seems to work. And as I look at planes and see if there's a better way, I can always redo this. But for now, this looks like the cowling's going to fit on it. And when I look up underneath, everything's kind of touching with no gap. So I'm assuming that's what's supposed to happen. So now I think we can move on from the baffle seals. Okay, baffle seals are done, I think. Unless I find out later that I got to redo them. That section took 26.5 hours. That brings my build time for the project to 1,433.9 hours. In the next episode, I'm probably going to do my first engine start. I need to get the engine started and make sure everything works before I finish riveting up the boot cowl in case I've got to get in there for the ignition system. So it'll be kind of the prepping and the engine start, I hope. I mean, that should be a pretty big milestone. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And remember, dream it, just build it.